There we are. We got the stream going. We got the chill music going. Gonna kind of launch off here. Shouldn't be hard. What do I mean? I mean, it's really just looking at a website. So not much in terms of an entertaining video to watch, although I would love to do some reactions. I do kind of want to keep this stream a little bit more streamlined because I might pull from this stream some of the first recorded videos because I need to keep this exposing going for American Futurism. Alright, I guess there ain't really nothing to do other than just jump right into it. Let me make sure I got everything going. Yeah. Looks all just about ready. Awesome. Thanks for joining the chat, Wolfie. Alright, let's not make things boring. I'll go ahead and get things started for you. I think I've got at least maybe 2 other guys who have been pretty faithful to the other streams, so I'm hoping they might show up here. Let me make sure that audio is kind of buzzed down a little bit, just so it might not mess with my mic there. Alright, well, that's just Charlottesville in the background, whatever. This, oh, I need to pull it up. There we go. There it is. Okay. Well, if you can't see it, let me move myself for a second. Okay, there shouldn't really be anything up in that corner there. That's just their logo, which we're going to get into. I had to do a little bit of reading and some research. I just don't think I could have jumped right into this. So if anyone's been around for the other things that I've put out, the other streams, they'll sort of already understand my background. I guess it's fair to say I used to be a fascist. I used to be alt-right, all sorts of different things, honestly, just sort of coasting along that pipeline. And I kind of eventually got led into, like, basically what you could call revolutionary National Socialism. Didn't quite get into super ideological specifics because that was always sort of a debate game. Like, there's not a whole lot worth getting into. But I mean, I was friends with everything from people who praised terror attacks to third positionists, which is kind of what we're going to be getting into here, because it seems like some of the only blogs and things that have really survived a lot of the white nationalist purging of the internet, at least insofar as, like, no one really expected Twitter to become the new 4chan and things like that. But in terms of, like, dedicated archiving blogs, there used to be quite a few of these. Some honestly probably still exist, but they're just not active. This one is presently active. Oh, I thought I had more tabs open than that. Well, I had a lot of things saved, but we'll dive into it. So let me actually get into it. Let me just check on the stream real quick. Oh, there you go. What are you saying? Raised in the middle of the Bible Belt, extremely conservative state, brainwashed into the culture of fire. Yeah. So, unbeknownst to so many people, there really is just this broad connection with like American, Republican, conservative. And what the alt-right was doing in the 2000s and 2010s was kind of just chaining that all together because everybody was using the same rhetoric. Now I'm talking about, if you're aware of like Richard Spencer's work with literally back in the day, it was like alternativeright.com. Like it was, I think that's like 2006, maybe earlier. Then you've got like Patrick Buchanan, you've got what's his face? Jared Taylor, things like that. You can kind of see white nationalism started out as like soft core, and nowadays it's sort of like it had its hardcore phase where there were a lot of shootings. I have the magazine here for Control Alt Delete Hate, and it's literally, I think there was 3 or 4 different like politically motivated, hate motivated. I get, like, I don't want to just be too vague and broad and just say hate. I don't, like, the ADL and all of them already exist. I'm trying to be a little bit more, let's dive into it, let's get more descriptive. But those kind of shootings happened. Well, I don't even remember what year that was. I can't get the magazine. Where is it? There's also another time on here. I'll get into this thing. The year of the mass shooter. Yeah. So whatever year Tree of Life, Christchurch, Poway, and El Paso were in. And you got to think about those shooters. There's a wide spectrum. So this is relevant because this is basically the sort of mindset we're going to be diving into. So, what was it? Tree of Life Synagogue. Forget the guy's name. He was a user on Gab. More than likely kept up with everybody from like Jack Posobiec types to, you know, the usual radical Nick Fuentes, Groyper, Nazi type of shit. Which isn't even the only like, so American Futurism, these guys, judging from the email I got from them, which I will showcase later, I tried reaching out actually to see if I could even bring them on, see if they could actually like represent or speak for themselves, and they didn't. Whoever it was, they didn't want to do that. And some of the names on the website for the pseudonyms for the contributors do seem familiar to me, so I think I've actually interacted with some of these guys before, at least in a group setting. And I can't quite remember, and it sucks because I think I know who they are. Tree of Life Synagogue, that was a dude completely radicalized by anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, basically. I wish there was another way to put it that didn't sound so like ham-fisted and common phrase of term. Like, because I say that and it's like it's gonna bounce right off of certain people. Like, they're not gonna understand it. Understand like the brevity, no, not the brevity, the wide implications of even just a sentence like that. Because there's a really good video put out by Dead Domain, and they did a really good, better diving than I've seen in many documentaries, and I like watching documentaries. They did really good things I wasn't even aware of, like how it kind of, she kind of showed, her pronouns are she and they, I believe, non-binary. They showed like the interconnectedness of it all, like everything from like a fairly mild conservative kind of buying into the sort of new world order. They're trying to make all the kids gay. You know, we need to take our country back. Like everything from that sentiment attaches to really old, it's almost like a part of human nature, like this culture that has always sought to shift the blame from anything that anyone might do onto an outgroup. And just oftentimes that outgroup happened to be the displaced Jewish populations, the displaced Israelite populations, I guess, more broadly speaking. Oh yeah, and then Christchurch, Brenton Tarrant had the whole Great Replacement Manifesto. He was over in New Zealand. I actually saw that video, and it was very awful. It was one of the things that really kind of broke the conditioning for me at the time, because it was literally a live stream first person video, like you were watching some kind of airsoft video, and the dude was just outright shooting into crowds, killing all these Muslim people, all these just innocent people, basically. And it doesn't even matter if they really even, oh, they weren't innocent, they were doing, I don't care. Dude literally just mowed down people because of some stupid idea he got convinced of. And we're going to get into the philosophy, the universal order, sort of the siege mindset, all of this really radical, super bad, harmful stuff, which is what leads people to basically say, okay, I'm going to, and you'll see what these guys do, all the like little subtle disavowals, and they don't, oh, we're not going to do anything illegal, and we're not affiliated with this group and that group. It's bullshit. Like, they basically are, they're just not going to put it out there on paper. Like, they're the kind of guys, maybe they're not stupid enough, and this is what Bob Larson was telling James Mason even back in that old radio show, which is what the first two streams were covering. He was saying, you won't act like a jackass, go pick up a gun and go waste someone else's lives and your own for some garbage ideology. But you just really hope someone else does it. And if someone else does it, you'll throw a little handful of confetti, a little bit of kudos their way. Oh, you know, good job. You were a child of the revolution. You really showcased things. Like, James Mason goes far to say, like, Jeffrey Dahmer and other serial killers are almost commendable because, well, look, they're showing how bad the system really is because look at what they did. Like certain bouts of predatory immorality is somehow proof that, we need to kill all of we need to subjugate and move and exterminate whatever, anyone that isn't a part of this sort of like more and more outdated sort of basic hetero, not even like white, but let's just white guy worldview. It's just this particular worldview, and they allow for they're very strict about their lenience. It's getting me riled up because I hate this. I saw myself in this. I was in this. Okay, I still got the website up. I'm sitting here doing shit and you guys can't even see me. Okay. This is what I was talking about, by the way, this magazine. So, Poe, I believe that was I actually kind of knew someone who was a victim of that. So a friend of mine, her doctor was the doctor who was shot, and she knew the wife of the doctor who was killed in Poe. It was crazy. And I remember her telling me that, and she knew I was into this stuff because she was like a trusted friend of mine. And I didn't like let everything onto it because a lot of it just kind of goes over normal ass people's heads because you would sound absolutely insane if you tried to get into it. And that's what I always felt. I was like, I know it sounds insane, but let me try to explain it to you. But it's like, no, it is insane. You can't explain this to anybody. You can pretend to play, you're excluding me. You don't understand. No, dude, you're out of your fucking mind, and you just don't get it. You don't have any idea that you're out of your mind. And El Paso was tragic. That was a pretty young kid, wasn't it? He just walked into a Walmart and just kind of started shooting randomly, like Randy Stair, kind of. Like, he didn't have targets. He just sort of was like, I don't know too much about the El Paso one, but I believe it had something to do, obviously, with Latin American people and the border and immigration in that respect. Same thing Britton Tarrant did. He's like, well, I'm going to get rid of all the invader alien people. Like, it's unbelievable. It's ridiculous. But you're going to see why they can't find it ridiculous. Let me, there we go. Boost that up a little bit, actually. I don't even know. That's... I'm not really hearing too much from the little background music. Let me know if you actually hear that or not. Because I don't want it to just be radio silence and me talking. I kind of want some space filler there. Nothing too crazy though. That's fine. Hopefully that's good. All right. Oh boy, these guys. I'm gonna go off in so many directions. I am triggered. Okay, we're good. Just jump into it. Everything's good, stream-wise. All right. So here we are. Or can you see my cursor? But let me see. Window capture. Where the fuck is the OBS property? Yeah, capture cursors on. Okay. I just won't be able to see it myself. Okay, so we'll go to the About section. We'll just go through each of the tabs first, and then we'll dive in. I've got an article and the other tab here, which really just tells you all that you need to know. They have links to their Onion site, their Tor server for the deep web. They have a Telegram channel. I used to use Telegram. I don't use it anymore because it's pretty much the only people that do use it are pedophiles and these guys, basically. The contact, which I tried, and we'll get into that later. They have a donate. That's great. Submit me. So they say that you can write for them. You can be a contributor for them. But I don't know what all the steps are. They'll just vet what you wrote. I don't know if they need to know who you are. They're pretty... These kind of guys, I remember, are pretty good about anonymity. I'm just surprised that a site like this is even still up, because even back when I was doing stuff, either by myself or for Heel Turn or people that I knew in the live streams that they did, we're talking shit people probably have never heard of. It's a couple years old now and defunct. Like, granted, okay, there were some like okay guys. We're not talking idealistically here, but I think there were some times where I was like, these are really cool dudes. And I'm looking back on it, I'm thinking like, man, if they just didn't believe this horse shit, they're really, really nice guys. You know? And, you know, they'll obviously say that about themselves. Oh, a good National Socialist stands up for his people and gives the shirt off his back. Like, kind of co-opting compassion and kindness. And like James Mason said, it's like, well, we only have that for our own people. It's like, what the fuck does it... What did Jesus say? He's like, even the worst. Tax collectors, robbers, pagans, whatever you could say, even they love their own, but they won't go as far as to love someone that is not their own. Like, I don't know how they miss this stuff, especially if they're claiming sort of a more Christian worldview. It's completely just discombobulated. Anyway, check the stream, make sure it's good. All right. Soothing volume. Thank you, Wolfie. I'm so glad you're here. All right, let's give you something to actually listen to. So in their About section, so the American Futurist is an American futurist publication. So these guys are recent, founded in 2020, that seeks to spread the message of American futurism and revolutionary, this is the key, revolutionary fascist, my mouse isn't working, revolutionary fascist ideals. That's basically the crux. This is where you basically get to unhindered dehumanization and cruelty. Because if there's one thing that's true about fascism, it's like, here, let me lift up the whatever the fuck the ideal is, and then everybody else can support the collective consciousness, support the idea, sacrifice your mind and body to the idea. And for what? You know, to continue the collective? Like, what? Like, it kind of misses this whole idea of, like, diverse unity. Like, obviously, with diversity, listen, okay, I know everybody talks about DEI, this and that. I'm not all read up on that. But if we're just talking strictly about these concepts, just diversity, inclusivity, or diversity, inclusion, equality, equity, whatever, those are great things. And I you know, I've been to places like Universalist churches, and it's like they're very, they're very happy, they get along. It's like going to a big old hippie commune. They're there for each other. So you can find community in places, but these are the kind of guys, and they've got okay, so the main crux is they got a book, and it was I read like the first 15 pages, and it is a dog shit book. I could have wrote better than that 5 or 6 years ago when I had the brain rot too. Like, I used to actually write articles for guys for certain websites. I don't know why they let me. That's what they do. They let, literal fucking teenagers. Like, it's a bunch of 30-year-olds making friends with teenagers. Literally. Alright, let's get back. They promote the books, articles, other forms of media. We'll get into that. That's what the library and the archives tab is for. So what's really ugly about the archives tab is something we'll get into. We are not an organization based around physical action. We're dodging that illegality charge, but that of merely a propaganda organization. We are not Atomwaffen Division, which is where I got tagged up. We are not the National Socialist Order. I didn't really hear too much about those guys back then, or any other organization, besides the media publication. So they're just saying they're them, and you can't attach us to nobody. So to find out what we mean by American Futurism, I don't need to click on that shit. I already read it up. Marinetti. So the futurist beliefs of Marinetti, Filippo Marinetti. So he was a friend of Mussolini. He was in the Fascista Party back in Italy. Blah, blah, blah. History. And he left because he was like, he had like an ideological and an aesthetic difference with where Mussolini and the other fascists were taking and leading the party to. So he just had other ideas. He split. And he split because he's like, I don't like the Roman aesthetics. I feel like you're going back. And we'll look into futurism, just futurism by itself. But when they're attaching this American moniker to it, they're trying to revive, like I say in the description of this video, they're reviving this Italian futurism and essentially just co-opting that and using it as another cloak and dagger tactic to push fascism in a way that they believe is just more legitimate because, it's a new thing. We're not over here remaking the National Socialist Party. We're not over here, even though they believe all the same things, they want to rebrand in some different way, and it literally makes fuck all of a difference other than them believing that they're that's the point of futurism. They're anti-tradition. And you would think, hold on, that sounds good. Anti-tradition. That probably vibes with a lot of leftists and, maybe like atheists or whoever out there, right? And no. I don't know what the hell they mean by anti-tradition. They seemingly just don't like the idea of having to rehash something, even though that's exactly what they're doing. They think that their terza posizione, their third positionism, which is what they're basically inspired after, is really special. And if you've ever heard of anything like fourth positionists and Duganists, Alexander Dugin, which is like a Russian think mind man, he is usually by the side of Putin. Like, you've got these like really transient sort of like, I don't know, they can't decide whether they want to be like dictatorial communists or fascists, or like they don't know what to champion, civic or ethnic nationalism. Like, literally, that's all it is. That's what it really comes down to. All the other bullshit you can just kind of lay aside. And then they're saying that they have decentralized this whole publication thing so that anybody can come in, my fellow brothers in arms, and they can write fascist, national socialist, white nationalist stuff, whatever. They can submit it. Obviously, the only people submitting articles for the most part recently are just their own staff, which is what we're going to get into here. Look at all these guys. So this was what I was going to say earlier. I've heard of this name, Texas Pete, not the hot sauce. I could have swore I've seen that screen name before. I just can't connect it. Rusty Shackelford's another familiar name. Tim Turtle is the author of the really bad American Futurist book we're about to get into. I don't recognize the other names. Brandon Russell is a name I recognize. Oh, why'd it go back? Mouse chat. What the fuck? Brandon Russell is a member of Atomwaffen. I don't remember or not if he's no, he didn't have to do with my indictment. He was like the first Atomwaffen guy, because I think he was the one in Florida with the roommates. I think like the college student guy who was in the military, he had bomb shit in his house, some shit like that. Honestly, there's probably like names in here that may ring a bell for me. Arch Rain kind of rings a bell for me. I mean, who knows what these pseudonyms even are supposed to be anyway. And then there's Anonymous. Is there someone named Anonymous, or is that just when anyone decides they want to be anonymous? Anyway, with names like Rusty Shackelford, which I really recognize, and like, these guys are ugly. I mean, it's probably one of those guys who answered me in the email, because this is the guy who seems to run the website. Get into the archives. Let me get some coffee. Big talk stream, and I did not prepare my throat well enough ahead of time. This is where stuff gets really bad. Well, I don't need that. Let me see this. Gotcha. So here in the archives, I didn't take a really good look at this one. I took a better look at some of the other stuff, but we have publications here. I mean, it would take years probably to go through everything they have on here, like word by word. But we have George Lincoln Rockwell, the founder of the American Nazi Party. We have stuff by him. You can put Lyndon Johnson in jail. Like, look at this, the state of the party. America needs leaders. America needs you. Hold on, let's see if we can take a look at this. The old-timey voice. Here's just one exciting example of the know-how you will get in this new course from Commander Rockwell's story. I was immediately conscious of them when I stepped off the plane in a major city in the U.S. South. Cops all around me. They were all going through a Dick Tracy routine, burying their faces in newspapers, talking in phone booths with a hand holding down the receiver hook, groups talking to each other with one participant always keeping me under surveillance, the whole bit. I was guilty of nothing illegal, and planned nothing illegal, of course. I was down there at the invitation of some wealthy oil men who were considering supporting the party. Ooh, wealthy oil men considering. See, this is what they mean by how far back it goes. Wealthy oil men aren't just guys with a small business making 200 grand a year. Wealthy oil men, that keep keying on that. Double click on that. I later learned that one of these wealthy individuals had a trusted old D-word servant before he talked freely because he was such a humble... Yeah, that's on screen. You might be able to see that. A good old N-word. The old man didn't know and couldn't believe until later the trusted old guy was going to freedom meetings in town. Oh, so what the fuck is he talking about? So one of the wealthy oil guys had a trusted he had a black friend, and or a servant rather, not a friend. Don't want to be denigrating, but he was going to basically like something akin to Martin Luther King rallies, okay? The result was the big surveillance scene at the airport. Ordinarily, under such circumstances, I would invite the detective to ride in the cab with me and even ask them to sit around in my room. I have nothing to hide personally and don't break the laws. That's literally actually what Rockwell sounded like. But this was different. This was very, very special type of police action. Only experience could help me here. Fortunately, I had the experience necessary to deal with such dirty playing, but I had to get my experience the hard way, going to jails, being falsely prosecuted, finding my way out of one illegal charge after another. Kind of reminiscent of like Donald Trump and stuff like that, where they're like, oh, it was a phooey old hokey charge, and they had it dropped the next day. Now, granted, stuff like that probably did happen a lot in the 60s. But for this guy, I'm pretty sure they were just trying to nail him down because they were like, you cannot. It was kind of just sort of a non-verbal cue. Like, you're not doing this shit in this country, dude. Like, you better chill. I mean, which is what led to his assassination, if you're not already aware of it. Yeah, wealthy oil man control. I mean, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, we're not talking small dogs here. Like, he was meeting with oil people are like right under bankers. Listen to this guy. From these years of experience, I knew something about all those cops an amateur would never think of. They were not trying to fool me. There was no real attempt to prevent me from knowing they were watching. They wanted me to know. They were engaged in what is called a rough shadow in the trade. The idea was more than just trying to find out what I was up to, etc. If they had only done that, there was nothing illegal about such surveillance from a police standpoint, providing the information is confined strictly to police business solving crimes, but that would not have accomplished what the Jews wanted. The race-mixing traders we opposed didn't want us to have the help from those wealthy... Okay, so he's saying there was an increased surveillance presence because of him and because they were having liberation meetings and rallies and whatnot in the area. Obviously, he said this is the U.S. South. And he's like, well, the race-mixing traders and the Jews, they didn't want me to talk to those rich guys. Well, gee, dude, I really wonder why. Like, I'm the victim here. Like, come on, man. Read your environment. And the enemy well knew that I couldn't go near the prospective angles with all those cops around me, nor could I have hoped to see them ever. So, with this knowledge, patriots in your area will acclaim you as a leader. What's the course? Is this like page 1? Oh, fuck all these. I'm not reading all this shit. Look at this. I left the hotel and took a cab to the home of the race mixer, where I had told the maid I'd be by to pick up the negatives. Oh, that's crazy, dude. You're talking English to somebody and they're helping you and they're holding on to a message for you. That's crazy. It's like they're human or something. That's nuts. Now, this is kind of like where the weird line comes in, where I'm aware of it because of before, but these are the guys who would kind of splice between. Okay, here's how it would work. So there's white separatist, white nationalism, which says, hey guys, let's all get apart because obviously us mixing together causes a lot of conflict. It's the best thing for all of us, blah, blah, blah. We can all have our own nations. And you don't have to necessarily be a white supremacist. They'll just imagine themselves as like an True folk assembly type of people where they want to preserve themselves to the exclusion of the other. In their mind, that idea is not entirely harmful until you start kind of talking about like deportations and, you know, zoning and moving things around. That's not always going to be pretty. And then there's kind of the middle ground of that where it's like, well, I want to preserve us because I think we're special, and this is why I want to do separating. And then there's the higher degree, which might have its own branches where they're just like, no, we're the best. Well, actually, there's 2 more. So then there's the supremacists, which is like, yeah, we really are better. We're the best, and we really need to find seats of power and be above you guys so that we can control things in our own interests. And these are very much like the pro-white America kind of people. They don't talk about taking over anything else other than America. And then you have the full-fledged world white supremacy Richard Spencer types who are like, no, dude, we need basically like UNESCO, but the white man version of it, where the global order is just a bunch of wasps on the top. Like, I remember him describing something like that once upon a time. So there's like, you know, your 4 or 5 variations of what they mean. So this is what's funny to me, you know? It's like, how are you gonna face somebody, like look somebody in the face and deal with someone, interact with somebody, talk to them? Bro used a stock photo and left the fucking watermark in. Didn't even buy it, just copy pasted some shit. Or didn't even find something without it. These guys are terrible. But like, imagine, that's the, like, oh, I'm gonna just use you as an asset. You know, you're the help, you're the maid. I'm gonna talk to you. Here's my suitcase. I'll tell so and so. I'll be like using them, and then not being able to regard them as human, even though they're intelligent enough to do what you ask. Like, it just immediate, active, sort of contradictory things happening in real time, and you're not even like factoring that in. You're just sort of still rolling with it. But that's probably more of like the pro-white preservationist separatist. Like, I think Rockwell was really only interested in like maybe as far as his aspirations were, it was, you know, white America, kick all the bad guys out, and he might have wanted to rehabilitate Europe and like kind of continue to support whatever it was that Hitler would have supported with the Third Reich in Germany. Supposedly old document. I mean, these guys are like, I mean, these are the guys who collect like Confederate artifacts, and I met a guy who fucking had Adolf Hitler's dress socks. He bought off of somebody. So I mean, they're definitely capable of preserving, and because obviously this is like scanned shit. I mean, it doesn't have to be fake. Like, there's tons of shit out there nowadays like just like this, but to them this is significant. So this is like print press, little fucking paper magazine shit. It looks real enough. American Nazi Party Propaganda, National Socialist World. Like, these are all just older publications. World Union of National Socialists, The Stormtrooper. These are magazines. What is that? Yeah, so Stormtrooper, January, February 1963. So these are still George Lincoln Rockwell things. What's it take to... Why, man, what's it take to make you fight? Oh, no. Oh my god. Nazis welcome NAACP. Well, quote unquote, welcome. Look at this, man. Look how bad shit used to be. And we're not talking like, this isn't like, oh, Patriot Front going out there or whoever in Philadelphia, a couple of guys marching. Like, this was a significant portion of the population in the 50s and 60s. Johnson betrays white majority. There's just philosophically a lot of these guys are just committed to this idea of like, well, we're the power majority, we need to stay in power. But it's like, dude, what do you like, they can admit that they're losing, they're being defeated, they need to do this, they need to do that, and that's what the other article is about to get into, and it's bad. But it's like, how'd you lose, man? I thought you were the big old tough strong guy, like, you know, 1,000, 2,000 some odd years of you know, conquering Europe and colonizing and whatnot, and you can't get your fucking shit together in one old little country. I mean, did it get that bad? I think this is most of the archives were just this. Okay, here we go. This is the other stuff. Oh, these are just photo galleries. So here, it was real shit that happened. I remember the NSWPP. That was, I think this is what evolved after Rockwell's death. The National Socialist White People's Party. Charles Manson photo gallery. That's where we're going to get into universal order, because you're like, how the fuck, why is Charles Manson like relevant to this? Obviously, if you know something about Charles Manson, you know about the whole, we're going to hide away in a cave and we're going to start the race war, and that's what the murders were about. It's like, sort of, I think from James Mason's perspective, who actually talked to Charles Manson in prison after the fact on multiple occasions, like they were buddies. And that's where Mason kind of gets a lot of the ideas from Siege and his Universal Order, National Socialist stuff from. Apparently, Manson was adjacent enough to this sort of like baking a new world from the ashes, and that's what these guys are going to start getting into talking about here in a minute. But it's like, at what point did Manson start buying into this stuff? Because you just sort of see him as like a wacky, crazy, beatnik hippie guy. Who kind of at least leaned more on like the false guru spectrum than he did like National Socialist thing. That's funny. You got Stormtroopers Manual, Underground Comics, what, rated XXX, James Mason's BitChute channel archive, Hour of Decision 777 Siege videos. Yeah. Radicalized sorry, I was getting Discord's notifications. Let's see what you're saying in chat. See, look at you going strong, man. You're the only one in chat. Good on you. Come on, Discord, get out of my way. But it looks too new and used underlines and italics, which were used around that time. Yes. I wonder about that. Like, who the fuck would fake a bunch of American Nazi Party documents? I'm just thinking they're real, just in a simplistic sense, but I don't know. Maybe you got a point there. But then again, it's like these are the kind of guys who are gonna save some shit like that. I don't know what the fuck comment. See, there's just this shit I didn't get into. This was like right about where I was turning the corner on this kind of thing, because I got as far as like a guy showing me like a book, like a little manual written by like some Irish Republican Army guys, IRA, and it was literally like a manual on how to like stage a cop's assassination. Not stage it, but plan it out, like a real, like, here's how you do it. You do this, and you got this guy over here, this guy over here. You got like a getaway van or truck over here. You get like a sniper position, and you know, blah blah blah. It all comes together. You're able to basically unalive a cop without like any trace, and then you zip out. Granted, this is back before forensics were where they are today. But that was the sort of inspiration they had, was like, we're going to learn, and you're going to see this in the library. Let's actually go there, because this shit's kind of old and boring. I could have swore the archives, it had like an Atomwaffen archive, unless that's in the library. So they recommend you use a VPN. This was what I was talking about, the banned books section, because they're saying you want to have a VPN before we're not going to be downloading anything. We can, if that's something we want to get into, but because there is some crazy shit, like some Mudahar style sort of dive in deep web, probably like bad stuff, which I'm surprised is even here. But that's lower on the list. So first we're gonna pop this open. This is the book I was talking about. So they got this shit. They got Mein Kampf. I mean, you gotta have Mein Kampf. So let me bring this open in a tab, because we're gonna, so this is basically their book. This is their literature. This is everything that these guys are operating on. Bro named Turtle wrote some 8th grade reading level dog shit for them, full of like sermonic rhetoric. Like, it's bad. We'll get to it. Political social doctrine of fascism. They got a Mussolini book, Bolshevism from Moses to Lenin. So they're talking about, could you imagine what this is probably connecting like a culture of critique, Kevin McDonald style sort of like anti-Semitism, all the way from what, like ancient Israelite dispersion all the way to Vladimir Lenin? Like, only in like the broadest strokes could you even attempt to do that. DVX, I don't know. Next Leap. So this is more, these things are like Iron March, and I don't know much about Iron March, but it was a fascist forum that was so bad it got like wiped from the internet, because it was like worse than this site where it's collecting all this stuff. Had an open forum where people could talk about it actively. There's no forum here, it's just articles. Handbook for the 21st century fascists. Like, look, this is, so if you guys are wondering, like, okay, what are the conservatives doing? What are the fascists doing? What are the Nazis doing? This is the kind of, if they're this far, this is the kind of stuff that they're researching, that they're reading, that they're looking into. Okay, this is, so remember the name Vincent Snyder was on the staff for the contributors to this website, and apparently he wrote his own little Amazon print-a-book, The Movementarian Menace. Now, some people might not understand what that is. So movementarian is actually, I think, something that article does get into, and it will describe it, but just in short, and just to tell you how much these guys are like really like poorly dodging any connections to illegal activity. So these are the guys that believe strictly in like preparation, doomsday, terrorism, and they don't like people who like do protests and rallies and marches, put their name and their brand out there. So like every time you've seen like a Nazi event, march, rally, whatever, these aren't the guys that were there. This is like something really important to understand. These weren't the guys that were there. Maybe at one point long ago if they were a part of other movements, but not like this. This might be something looking into, because these aren't the guys who are kind of trying to go out there and they explicitly say like, we're not here to express and freedom of speech and our message. Like they'll utilize freedom of speech and freedom of religion to the detriment of others. Like they don't really believe in that themselves. They would take it away from you. They would take it away from who they viewed as their enemies, which is just very selective, fascist. Only my people get to do what I deem lawful. But yeah, movementarianism just means Identity Europa, Patriot Front, all the groups from however long ago back they go. At around the 70s, 80s, 90s mark, they just threw it all. They said, no, we're not doing this like rally protest thing. Like we're never going to win that way. We need to either wait for an accelerated, like they're for accelerationism, however that takes form is up to them. They want the country to collapse so that, but they don't want it to collapse yet. They want to wait and prepare and convert people to fascism and get them all ready, prepped, and prepared and in contact with local enough people within the same counties, so that whenever and however shit hits the fan, they'll sort of rise up like the Purge, the final Purge movie, and start mobilizing. That's what they believe in. That is their sophisticated strategy. The FAG agenda, that's interesting. Fascist economics and socialism of duty. So for sort of like the more anti-authoritarian or possibly even socialist types, there's going to be a slight tiny overlap where it does talk about power, structures and capitalism, and that's all fine and fair, but it's what they do with it. National Socialism, the biological worldview, Oswald Mosley, Imperium. I actually had this book before. It is a very big, long, silly book. I think it was written by, the story behind that one is one of the lawyers who was prosecuting in the Nuremberg trials. After the Nuremberg trials, he didn't, apparently this is the story, I don't know if it's true, he didn't feel good about it, so he went and researched it again, and it turned him into a fascist. Kind of like a Saul to Paul conversion story. He was like, I was the bad guy, and then I was like, no, and then I became the good guy in his mind. Here, let's check on stream. Yeah, no. I mean, the thing is, this is for their own audience, so I don't know if they'd give their own audience viruses. Probably not intentionally. One second. I gotta let the girlfriend know that, like, I'm not famous. Like, she can come home and bug me or make noise or whatever. It's just that, like, we're not fucking Vosh. We don't have thousands of viewers and etiquette to follow. We can just do whatever. We only got one trusted viewer. My girl. All right, back to this. Interesting story with that. Who knows? How would you even find out? So these are big ones right here. Andrew MacDonald is the pseudonym for William Luther Pierce, who ran the National Alliance, which is like where it got really bad from the 90s to the early 2000s. William Luther Pierce was like the first really out there popular major figurehead to really just be like, yeah, killing these people is totally cool and you should do it. Oh, I just opened it up. I didn't want to do that. Mouse is a little sensitive. So Turner Diaries, There's some pretty good videos out there that do cover the Turner Diaries. I recommend that. Hunter, I don't know. Is that the sequel? I don't know. So here's George Lincoln Rockwell books. This Time the World, White Power. I actually read this one back then. There's a whole chapter which is literally, I think it's like the second chapter. I'd open it up, but I don't care to. But there's a chapter in the book which is like, okay, so it sort of opens up like a Purge movie. Like, oh, the power's out. Everything's kind of going to shit. You hear all this fussing and gunfire in the distance. Next thing you know, oh, the Jews and the blacks, they took over the National Guard, and they're riding tanks into the suburbs and doing whatever they want to the nice white people. Like, that's literally all the chapter is. Like, this is what they thought. They thought things were so hostile back then that something like that was genuinely realistic to them. And I really hate, listen, they're going to get into esoteric Hitlerist sort of stuff. You're going to see that in the library. It's going to move into the religious section, which I find a big problem with, because one of the centers of this channel is going to be subjects of religion and spirituality, because that's kind of more so what I'm into nowadays. Not that I'm trying to be a guru, but I have some things that I think and believe that I think are really helpful for people in that regard. Anyway, they get, listen, where does it, okay, it's still on ideology. So here's a Manson file, which is just sort of like a Mansonite sort of fan book where they compile all the testimony and all his personal stuff for my Legionaries. I think I heard of this book. I don't think I ever read it. A lot of guys, I think, liked this book. I don't remember why. I think it's where Iron March gets its inspiration from the Iron Guard. I don't remember what that is. The Awakening of it. Like, these are all just a bunch of short books. Pagan Imperialism and the Metaphysics of War. Okay, so Julius Evola. Guys like that. I'm surprised they don't have Martin Heidegger in here, but I don't think he ever really wrote anything that had to do with his National Socialist leanings. The International Jew by Henry Ford. That's this debunked literally this book is nonsense. Like, it doesn't, it's not legitimate. At least I know that. All the other stuff we can make it up, but this one for sure is just literal actual fake. Like, everything, I can't even remember the entire history of it, but it literally was just adapted fiction. It was almost like it was a comedy at one point, and adapted fiction from like somewhere in the French, some French guy, and then it over time kind of got converted, and then people started, like, they took whatever the rubric was that the French writer did, and they slapped all of this like anti-Semitism, conspiracy theory stuff in it, and it got kind of cobbled together into this like, oh, here's their inner writings. It's bullshit. It's literal fiction. This one's interesting. I don't recall what this could be about. Jews Must Live. An account of the persecution of the world by Israel on the frontiers of civilization. Roth. That's sort of a really strange. Is that like a good Jew book, or is that? See, there's just things in here where you're just like curious. Like, what are you getting at with this? They have Edgar Allan Poe's complete. Like, why Edgar? Is there something about Edgar Allan Poe that we don't know about, or do they just like to elevate things that they think are like really proud white man art? Brave New World. Aldous Huxley was a humanist. That's like somebody they're not supposed to like. Sometimes they will actually hold the enemy's literature on their sites and archives because they want people to be informed. Like they basically wrote the protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, but it's supposed to be the enemy's book, and we got it because they leaked it, and oh, here it is. War is a Racket, National Socialist Liberation Front. So the NSLF, that is what Joseph Tomasi, that was the big evolution after George Lincoln Rockwell died. And Vincent Snyder. So this is an old book. It might be an old book, or this compilation by Vincent Snyder, which is one of the contributors on this site. So that's what I mean. The contributors on this site, I think this is like everybody from all of the Nazi groups that have ever existed from then until now. This is kind of just where they're congregating now. is in this futurist sense. It seems like that's the case to me, because I was looking high and low. I found this website because somebody commented on my first video talking about James Mason and Siege and everything, and he's like, I think James Mason has another site, which he does, and I did not find it but in looking for it, I found this one. So there's an article on this site where the author gets into literally all this like interpersonal drama that has to do with James Mason. Maybe we can take a look at it. And he talks about, well, James Mason and this Wolfric guy, and Wolfric was like an open pedophile, and we don't know why James Mason was working with him. I'll tell you why. James Mason has a charge for sexual conduct with a minor, but they don't talk about that. I guess it was fake. Maybe they don't give a shit. They're like, oh, well, you're working with a pedo, we don't like it. And it's like, bro, he was one. What are you talking about? And of course, they probably have some apologetic for what happened. It's like, no, dude, this was a prolonged relationship with like a 14-year-old that Mason had, regardless of the context. Anyway, so James Mason and this other guy, they lied about, like, they got us to develop a website for them, and then they lied what it was for. Literal stupid bullshit infighting fascists, like, oh, well, we don't support that kind of thing. You support that kind of thing. I don't want to help with that. And then the same guys come around and say, hey, can you help us out with this? And then they're like, yeah, sure, that sounds good. Like, I thought you couldn't trust these guys. What are you doing? This is what I mean. They trust them because they are white and they think that they share the same values. That's it. And guess, and then they ran into more drama because of it. It's just ridiculous. All right. So Jews and slavery in the Old South. I don't know what that's about. Bertram Wallace Corn. Wait, I think I remember that name. I think that was a guy who was supposed to be the dude who went around and surveyed. No, I'm thinking of somebody else. There was like a French researcher nobleman who a lot of Nazis liked because he came to America and he said, oh, look how bad these slaves are, and look at how well the native population has progressed. And by native, they mean the settlers. Some shit like that. Culture of Critique, Kevin MacDonald. Christopher Cantwell loved this guy because he gave a very intellectual veneer to this idea that, oh, well, there's something about those Jews. He gave it like real weight and propellant. Because usually guys are just like, haha, look at their nose and look what they do. Boy, they're dirty. I don't like them. There's never really ever been a good reason to be anti-Semitic whatsoever. The only thing they can maybe claim is like in-group preference, but that's not unnatural. But this is an evolutionary analysis of Jewish involvement in intellectual and political movements. And then I think there's sequels to that book which catalog what he thinks is a historical buildup from I don't know how far long ago up until today. Like, they're just on the Jews and their history, and they're trying to just be like, look at what they're doing, blah. Just completely dehumanizing, alienating, bullshitting an entire minority group to sort of paint them as like the cabal mastermind. The Cleanest Race, How North Koreans See Themselves and Why It Matters. Here's David Irving books. It's a bunch of shit. Basically just pro-Hitler. Look what he said stuff. Nameless War. Here's a William Luther Pierce book. Oswald Spengler. A lot of guys fall for this kind of shit. You think it was the alt-right and all those guys who started this whole, like, oh, which way Western, man? No, it was this fucking bald fucker, Oswald Spengler. Now, there may be some kind of, like, commentary or critique of sort of the cultural motions that take place over many generations. And that's completely legitimate. You know, that's postmodern stuff. Like, it has a place to talk about it broadly. But obviously Oswald inspired, and he himself just had a perspective that inspired all of this stuff, because I think he wrote in the 1800s. And it just, like, this is where it all comes from. This is how dated it all is. Here's Siege. This is the infamous one. This is the only one that I think might be worth possibly downloading in the future to go over, because it just has to be. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. A lot of these are, like, some of these seem to appear properly published, but a lot of these are just the same old, just like, oh, well, you know, and then the white guy and the Europeans, they fell off, and then this happened over here, and we just got to get back on top, guys. We're losing. We're like, they're thinking about it. That's their presupposition, and so everything that comes out after that is going to be completely redundant and only subservient to the narrative and the ideology that the West has fallen, the white man this and the white man that, and he has to get back on top because they can't withstand evolution, change, and progress. Siege had to be... Look, so here's the more manual type stuff. Like, this is the how to be a guerrilla warfare, and how to buy gold, and how to take super male vitality, and how to build guns, and how to... Here, Irish Republican Army Green Book, loose, like, OPSEC, loose talk costs lives, the War of the Flea, Catechism of the Revolutionist. So this is like, you personally want to be a guerrilla revolutionary, here's the stuff you want to read. Like war manuals, combat instruction manuals, psychological operation, combative, social engineering, like manuals from the army from, like, who the fuck knows how long ago. Mao Zedong on guerrilla warfare from the U.S. Marine Corps. Chemistry experiments, poor man James Bond. Like, look, how to build booby traps, cyanide, gun conversions, explosives, arson. I've never even heard of that one. Good, I mean, yeah, good luck following that. Who the fuck made this? And this is a bad one. These, I don't even want to show those. That's literally how to make poison and explosives. So these, they're not fucking around. Like, if you're talking, I understand, like, anarchist cookbook type stuff. Like, okay, if you're an independent person and you're kind of an anarchist, like, okay, think about, like, leftist people who want to own guns and stuff like that. So they have, like, full autonomy. They want to be able to defend themselves and whatnot, right? Gun in the safe. I'm capable of this. I'm capable of that, kind of a thing. A little bit of that is understandable. But you know full well that this is here to provide either for, like, the next thing that somebody tries to go and do. Like this, but probably a lot of these PDFs are just rotting in these guys' hard drives, and they're not going to do jack shit. But they definitely promote it. Let's see what you're saying. Thank you so much for chatting, Wolfie. Yeah, exactly. They wanted some, bro, give me my equal rights. Like, fuck, bro, I thought we were all human. Like, they had it better in fucking Persia under Cyrus. That shit was thousands of years ago. I'm willing to bet a lot of this stuff is fake. Nearly everything these people do is fake to push their narrative. Oh, like what? Obviously, the rhetoric is essentially faked because it's based off of, like, false perception and data. In terms of the literature, honestly, the spicy stuff I can believe because they have a Telegram channel. People can do anything they want on Telegram. I can see how the powder recipes are making it on there. I'm too afraid to look and check and make sure that shit's legit because I'm not trying to fuck around with that. But I mean, if someone wants it, it seems like it's there. This is just fictional, self-acclaimed retellings of past events. Most of what they write about didn't actually happen. It's not funny. It's not cool. It's not entertaining. It's not relevant. I had this problem. I had a good handful of, like, fascist literature back in my time. And the shit was boring as fuck. it was like really like mind numbing. And then there was the real like, oh, we're wanting to sound smart. Like Imperium was a slog, Mein Kampf was a slog, and then shit like George Lincoln Rockwell's White Power, and like this book we're going to be looking at, The American Futurist. It's like a fucking 7th grader wrote it. Like it's either it's boring because it's unliterary and grammar, just word shitty salads, or it's some shit that some old dude wrote 150 years ago, and it's incomprehensible because it's like, I'm not there. So this is what they do projection. They're not there 150 years ago where some of the old white guys are like, oh, stuff's starting to look a little funky around here, let me write about it. And they got to put it in all of their own conjecture. And then a guy 150 years later is reading that today. He's like, oh yeah, that's definitely happening to me right now too. It's like a relatable fucking meme post on TikTok. They think they're experiencing the same thing, but they're not. Or if they are, and they're relating it to the same things, they got some completely out of their mind fucking solutions. Like, I don't know why they want this. It's because they're so afraid and paranoid that, like, if the world just sort of keeps going as it is, somehow it's a terrible thing. It's an underlying conspiratorial mindset that, like, there is always an enemy group cabal in control of things from behind the scenes. It's literally a more rational rehashing of, like, lizard demons pretending to be people. Yes, too much of it is just word salad. Lots of big words strung together incoherently make them seem smarter. Honestly, okay, there's times when I talk like that, but I try to make it coherent. I don't mean talk, I mean type. Like if I wake up in the morning and there's, you know, something on Facebook and I want to respond to it, like, I'm going to respond like dog shit because I'm tired. Like I haven't fully woken up yet. But I mean, these guys are just oh my. There, you'll see it right now. Just look at this fucking shit. Look at this. Okay, let me just quickly cover these really fast. So you see what they have on here. We haven't even gotten to their writing yet. Oh boy. Look at their email, contactaf@hitler.rocks. There's no such thing as a hitler.rocks. It is a Proton Mail email address, which I do use Proton Mail just because Gmail just gets way too much spam, and I didn't know of another alternative, so I just reused the Proton Mail. But anyway, a list of those imprisoned who could receive support, which when I was incarcerated, I did get, I think, 2 letters from people claiming to, like, have my back and support me and let me know whatever you need, brother. You're getting persecuted because of what you believe in, and I'm here for you. And I wrote them back being like, you're retarded. Not quite literally that, but literally that. Like, that was essentially my response. Of course, at the time, I was really ramping up into evangelicalism. Because that's what I needed to hop to at the time to really get me through that. And that's just what appealed to me. And there was something legitimate about it. Whatever you're drawn to. So there's what you're drawn to, and then there's what you decide to attach it to. So I was drawn to Reformation, pulling myself back up from giving up. I needed hope. I needed something to hang on to. I needed to have a different authority to help guide me that wasn't a bunch of fucking Nazis. So I attached myself to a very kind of like almost liberalish bibliology, I guess I could say. I picked up one of the loosey-goosey Bibles according to a lot of the more strict fundamentalist Christians out there. It was a New Living Translation, had lots of commentary from, everybody, men, women, definitely probably less fundamentalist type of Christian commentaries, which is always fine and nice for people who really don't know what they're getting into. Everybody's got their step and stage. But that's what I was into at the time, so I wrote them back. in that kind of language. I would put it differently today, but I think it served its purpose back then. Yeah. Well, they're also just spiritually asleep too. May as well. I 100% believe that religion does serve a great purpose. Give me something. Yeah, that's definitely fair. That's not the whole story, and I know you know it's not, but that's why I'm offering legitimacy to it. Is like, that's not what I believe now, but that's what I did need at the time. And then that was really all I could. I mean, that was it. There wasn't like, they didn't have fucking Hindu Vedanta books up in the fucking unit. They just had that Bible, and it was beat to shit. I'm surprised it was there. It's a little bit of a sign, honestly. Yeah, POW support. Like, so look, so this, let me see. Yeah, one of these guys. So this guy right here, Caleb James Cole. That was one of the other guys on my indictment. It was him and Cameron Shea, but I think Caleb was like the main guy. This was the guy who took it all the way to trial, didn't take a plea, claimed not guilty or whatever, and he was going to try to argue that fucking bullshit in court, and I was like, you're retarded. How did you... Because when we get into the email that they replied to me with, they're basically saying like, oh, when things got rough, I was all non-committed. It's like, I mean, I'm going to commentate on that later, but I was already on my way out. Like, deciding to go do something for Atomwaffen was like a last-ditch effort to maybe either get some support brownie points. Like, I was in a wreck at the time. Like, I still kind of was hanging on to the stuff because it was all I knew. It was the friends that I made. It was kind of what I seemed to have believed in because I didn't have anything else to believe in. And I had already isolated and sheltered myself away from any other views because a lot of what this sort of fascistic ideology does is it says, well, this is the only one true way to look at the world and everything else is just this, like, you know, ooh, gay, clown world phooey. And it doesn't need to make you doubt or challenge you at all. So they're really there for that, like, almost like Mormonish, strict adherence to the beliefs. But yeah, so it's like, hey, write this guy. Look, non-organization affiliated POWs. I'm assuming, I don't know who those guys are. But yeah, Samuel Lincoln. I think that might have been another one of the defendants. I'm not sure. Or, no, this might be the guy. I think this is one of the guys who killed somebody. And this was just a guy who was all up in it for sure. But like me, he only just did the threatening communications with the mail shit and the posters. But yeah, that's that. And then they have a store. You can actually give them your money and they'll give you stuff. Oh, this is where I saw it. So the Iron March collection, you actually have to buy this because that kind of stuff is rare for them. Basically, some of the stuff you saw in the library. So they sell this flag, which this flag actually was one of the flags out in front of fucking Disneyland that one time. So that's how you know one of these guys were there. And this, like, those are probably the only things worth buying. This book is shit, and we're about to see why. Who the fuck would buy that? But like, if I were a fascist, I would only get this because that's a load of informative literature in that way. This is just self-aggrandizing. And this is actually a separate site. This is American Futurist Publishing. Here's the Telegram, the contact. They have 2 fucking links to their Telegram. Yeah, it's the same. They're retarded. Okay. So, let's back out of that. Submit media. Don't need to look at that. Contact. Now, okay, so we're kind of done looking at the tabs. So here's the book. Yeah, it's a cult. It almost seems like a bit of a cop-out to just say it's a cult, but it's like, no, like, it really is. It's a fucking universal, applicable. It's taking all these ideas from all over the place and essentially trying to coddle them together to attempt to make some kind of, like, coherent thing. Oh. I may or may not have to leave the stream for a minute. Gotta go help with something. Yeah, you know what? Let's do that. Let's take a wee little break. Let me. All right, we're back. Let's get into this book. Get a drink here. Alrighty. Oh boy. Oh, there we go. Wrong tab. There we go. Pop this guy. We're good there. Good. Bump that to 5. All right. Oh boy, look at this shitty book. 87 pages. The Futurist State by Timothy Turtle. Just felt the need to make another book. Look at this shitty ass table of contents, man. Couldn't even put that. I thought the white man was smart and integral and he could fucking really organize shit, make it look nice. What the fuck is this? He's embracing his inner lack of fucking effort in Microsoft Word. That's what he's doing. Okay, look at this table of contents. This is probably more worth covering than the actual book itself. The Enlightenment Revolution against the Natural World. Individualism, the demon within. War, the world's only hygiene. Okay, so those are kind of like the main tenets of the fascist futurism is Marinetti, the Italian fascist who this whole thing's based off of, because, well, Mussolini's a little too obvious, is he believed that war, violence, conflict was the world's only cleanser. It was hygienic. The world's only hygiene. That's how things became anew and fresh. Now, I can understand a greater sort of almost spiritual worldview that takes into an account, like, conflict happens and things can arise out of conflict. You know, look at various revolutions and things like that. Look at a new race for a new world, volunteers galore. We are under occupation and it should be treated as such. The LGBT problem. Oh, you're not gonna like some of the language there, guys. I seen it. The sins of our family, founding fathers, animal welfare, our governmental manifest destiny. No room for the old guard in our revolution, so that's where some of the futurist stuff comes into play. They just really want this North American thing. We are anti-capitalist. Fiat currency, Satan's money system. So there's tying Satan to finance and obviously likely Jews. An anti-leftist. So they're saying that in the prologue that this was born from Iron March. So this whole futurist thing goes back to that fascist forum I was talking about before. They claim to not want to be just a copy of the Third Reich, like sort of the National Socialist movement. Or they don't want to fuse their fascism with American republicanism, Well, much to our chagrin, it doesn't seem like they want the two things to be connected, but it seems like they are, because we're going to see in their article the path forward. That's exactly what the fuck they do. They want to remain distinct and have their own sort of ideological, semantic disambiguation, but they also want to be like, they want to be pure with that, and then yet they want to like force and influence everybody too. And they don't want to see sort of how they're connected. Oh boy. We've struggled with this in North America. This is because Americans aren't a specific ethnic group like Germans or Slavs. I like them. There is also the glaring fact that the United States is a republic founded on Enlightenment values. Enlightenment values are completely opposed to fascism. An American fascist state embracing the values of the old Republican system is doomed to spectacular failure. So there's just like all of these. Granted, this is the prologue. I could get that. But there's just these fucking declarative statements, these assertions that just are not. The book doesn't lay them out at all, or unpack them, or explain them. And you would think, like, the way you kind of propel your mode of thought is by continually explaining things. It's a headache, but that's what you do. So you're going to see how lazy this writing is. It's only just ideological rhetoric and appeal. Ideological rhetoric and appeal. That's all that they seem to care about. This book is not here to rope anybody in. Let me see. All right, one second. Ain't nobody got no respect taking important phone calls in the middle of a stream. There's so much I'm gonna have to cut out of this. Hey, alright, Wolfie, we're on the same page. Cool. We just started looking at the book. What's the kitty doing? Like oil and water don't mix. Trying to meld ideas from the Enlightenment era with a fascist system is stupidly oxymoronic. Like, that's just rhetoric. Like, that's not even good. He's not explaining anything. In works, what is it? We even see these incorrect ideas in works like great men like George Jacob Rockwell and Dr. William Luther Pierce. They venerate these men, but they're like, oh, well, I don't. There's the semantic disambiguation again. Oh, I don't agree with them on this, because if they just did what if they just did what I'm gonna do, then it'll work. Through this book, we'll show why this happens and what we can do to purge this Enlightenment cancer corrupting our movement and clouding our thinking. Belgium. The reason why we pick Futurism instead of National Socialism is simple. Futurism is a fascist, political, and art movement started in Italy during the early 20th century by Filippo Tomasi Marinetti. Marinetti's ideas meld well within an American landscape because he says Italy basically has multiple cultures that created an ethnicity. That's one of their points. So America can do that too. We can be like, they're stating like a white American fascist state can be like a mixture of different kind of white cultures and have its little tiny technical differences, but then eventually amass into a singular, kind of like what we do have today in like a singular American polity culture, which they are presuming is just the white American, but no, the American is anybody. That's what they have wrong. Man, it's a dry night. Futurism, unlike National Socialism, isn't based on tradition, but is rather anti-tradition. Futurism believes in destroying the current order in favor of raising a new one. So this is literally, they have the same objective in mind for destroying the current order in favor of a new one, but like they mean new one. They don't mean like, okay, let's just do, after we reconstruct society, let's just copy Hitler. They're saying, no, let's reconstruct society and like take it in a new direction. That's really the only difference. Everything else is absolutely the same. Hi, babe.
Hi.
Hold on. Quick bit of private matter to discuss. All right. So here's some futurist arts. Oh boy, this is what I mean. It's just fucking boring. Like, this is just like alt politicky shit that nobody gives a shit about. The critiques, the resistance, like that's not there. Like no one cares. So here's where all the claims kind of start heading in. Here's their first chapter where they say, first, we must define what the Enlightenment truly was. The Enlightenment era, the Enlightenment Revolution, was a period when many writers, artists, and ideologues started openly criticizing and calling into question the old order of Europe that had reigned since the time of Charlemagne. From the church to the royal families, the entire system, which had reigned for over 1,000 years, was now in question. Some of these new beliefs were atheistic, proto-Marxist, or Republican. So let's think about it. So they're saying, well, not think about it. First, they're saying, okay, so an entire 1,000 years is just coggled into old order of Europe. What does that mean, and how are you not appealing and connecting yourself to that? And how is what you're doing new if you're saying that something was one way, and then the Enlightenment came in and disordered the old order of Europe and started doing proto-Marxism and other things that developed? So atheism, that's bad. Marxism, obviously, that's fascists, that's no bueno. And Republican, so that's kind of them saying, like, even things we might otherwise agree with, we're not agreeing with because we're a little bit more purist than that. And they see it as individualistic. So this is where fascists was sort of like double down on, like, yeah, we are for the collective, and the collective needs to be this. Individualism is the belief that the individual should be held in higher regard than that of the collective society. And obviously they believe the opposite, and they don't even go into why. They just, here's rhetoric. Do you ever see look at this shit. Do you ever see individual ants placing themselves above the colony? How about wolves putting themselves above the pack? What kind of argument is that? Like an appeal to nature, but only a specific part of nature because the natural order isn't unitive? Like, they don't all do the same fucking things. Mass individualism is suicide of the collective. So this kind of does get at the idea of, like, the atomization of society, which can be a detrimental thing, obviously, when you're not even connected to the people around you. But they mean it in a sense, like, apparently everybody's just a stark individualist. And it's like, no, not really. Like, there's so much assertion and assumption and literally just made up ideas being inserted where they think that it makes sense. And here's a cartoon where it says, oh, look at the ugly, like, Jewish guy, and he got all them fighting, and then Hitler makes in one guy. And this is their little allegory for fascism, is the fasces is their symbol, and it's multiple, it's a bunch of sticks. It's that old tale. The unity of the Aryan wins. Like, that's how simplistic they're operating. Yeah. Exactly. It's impossible to put the rabbit back in the hat. Yeah. That's what was so annoying. Like, I would get little, like, blips from my probation officers. Like, oh, don't you consort with those people again? And I'm like, I don't fucking want to, like, at all. Like, I want to shit talk these people because it's like they fucking tricked me, you know? They didn't help me. And you know what? I'm guilty of that too, because I went out there before, I did radio or live or whatever, and I would talk about this shit. And there were people that would message me and say in chats like, hey, you know, you really put that really well, and I like what you do, and I love the way you say it, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, everyone's well-being. You can't be like, well, we're collective, but for our individual group and not the other groups. You see, like, unless you're then able to, what they're trying to say is they're distinguishing, like, James Mason would say, like, God's chosen people, or, like, real humans are the white ones, and then everybody else are not real humans, which is not even remotely scientifically supportable. Like, they're pro-science and anti-science, and it just depends on the circumstance. Enlightenment, okay, you're gonna love it. Enlightenment individuals. I didn't know we were Enlightenment individualists, and I don't know if you're actually gonna find what, like, fucking, who's an Enlightenment philosopher? They never said no shit like this. It's like, the thing with fascists is they've got one singular lane of thought. It doesn't go in any other axis. They don't understand, like, integral theory or spiral dynamics. They don't understand how people go from one thing to another. They're apparently fans of fucking racial, social Darwinism and evolution, but they can't see how that applies across the board at all. Just only in their regard. Well, it is human nature to be an antisocial, selfish piece of shit, to justify their garbage idea. Like, look, okay, this is a book. And it says garbage ideas. It's a damn good reason. Who the fuck wrote this? Hulk Hogan? In individualistic systems, antisocial, narcissistic. So those words did not exist back then. They say they're anti-tradition. Oh, we're not trying to appeal to the old world and bring it back. And it's like, everything, you're trying to use tools that you don't even believe exist in order to construct this thing that you're trying to do. Many individualists argue that humans are above nature and thus we can change our behavior or biology as we please. I don't know, what is he talking about, like epigenetics, or just the generalized, like, humans can change? We can change our behavior. So Nazis don't believe that people can change their behavior because they think, like, every other generation African American's gonna just go right back to being a beat boop bop and 80 IQ gang member, no matter what. Just genetically, that's what they just resort to. That's what they believe. I remember that shit. You must be willfully ignorant. Oh, excuse me. You must be willfully ignorant of basic natural concept and law. So they say, oh, you don't understand basic shit. There's just two genders, guys. There's only a handful of races, and we just happen to be, like, the coolest one. That's what they mean by basic natural concepts and laws. No one and nothing can be above nature. So they're saying they're a part of nature. They're just like the animals. But then they're not a part of the animals, and the black people are the animals. Like, you see, this shit is just internally incoherent. This is the deranged philosophy of Jews and, excuse me, mutilated trannies. Like, they're just coming out with they're just seething. That's all that is. Anyone who tries to be above nature will only find confusion and ruin at the end of their warped path. So, there was an old Christian lecturer named Mark Musser. Mark Musser went to like a watermelon university, sort of like communist and environmentalist. up in Washington State. And of course, he's a Christian. He didn't like it. He just went there, got his degree, and he's got stories, whatever. Been there, done that. But the interesting thing, he had a lecture on like how the Nazis basically, what the blood and soil idea is. And it's like this German romanticism that sees the Aryan race sort of idea as like a pure result of that environment. So they come out on top, and everybody else born in, swamps or deserts, they're just, they don't fit the bill. Some crazy shit like that. Like, they have this obsession with being like, it's like nature worship. It's like environmentalism without the, well, you could say maybe they are environmentalists in some sense. Like, yeah, okay, they're not capitalists. They're not dumping oil into the rivers because, they like the river. It makes them white power, I guess. Who knows? But you get the idea. Okay. We're not reading this whole book. I think, I only went about this far. So, okay. I don't even know about this. So they talk about Harvey Milk, a homosexual Jew and child molester politician. Okay, I don't even know anything. Okay, who the hell? Because this is what they do. They put a lot of things behind their claims. And it's either just he was just an openly gay politician from way back in the day. Assassinated in 1970. Yeah, I never heard of this guy. Hey. Yeah, San Francisco Board of Supervisors. So, he's not even that way up there. It's not like he was a senator. Counterculture of the 1960s caused him to shed many of his conservative views about individual freedom and the expression of sexuality. So this is kind of like the beginning of the whole San Francisco gay area kind of thing. Okay. So it's understandable why there's some clout behind this guy. They don't like him because he was a gay Jew guy. That's it. I think everything else they're making up. So let's go back. He was in the military. This guy lived. He did life, okay? He wasn't fucking rotting away on the internet. Let's try to find... There's literally nothing about this. What? There's so much... Yeah, this is a whole nother chronicle. Yeah, there's nothing about any kind of, child molestation. In the wake of the Jonestown suicides, Moscone had recently increased security at City Hall. Cult survivors recounted drills for suicide preparations that Jones had called white. Okay, so there's something connected to what the fuck's his face? I want to say John Jones, but that doesn't sound right. Jim Jones. Yeah, this was a whole era right here. This is like a whole script on a whole, the gay population of San Francisco, the politics, each of the politicians' little conflicts. White Knight riots. Avenge Harvey Milk. Yeah, people love this guy. They love what he did. Yeah, there's a whole story here, Tributes. Yeah, there's nothing about anything that he did. Yeah, they just don't like him. The worst thing they can possibly say is, well, because he was homosexual, he's inherently some kind of pedophile. Or maybe there's some backwood conspiracy theory about... And just look, they just put him here. Instead of having a normal family that will grow and sustain society, the LGBTQ plus bowel movement, Jesus, would rather come and have fake sex with the same... This never produces children. It only produces a cornucopia of sexual disease. Like, just outright just hating. Just dogging. Yeah, exactly. You just want some fucking... Because you just want to be able to walk outside in the general public and just be like, like everything else, everything's kind of on the same level. We're all on the same page here. And then that's where the big conspiracy comes from. It's just like any other group. They wanted some sort of equal vision. They wanted equal treatment. They wanted equal rights, whatever the case. And like today, where it's like the rights are somewhat basically on the level playing field, but now it's just a culture thing. People just aren't personally sharing the same view of the same page, if you know what I'm saying. Like it's racist legally not to hire someone because of race, but you can still personally view something like that. Yeah, and it talks about mutilation of genitals. It doesn't really understand all the stuff behind top and bottom surgery. I mean, I kind of see the... honestly, the lesbian, gay, bi thing is a whole lot different than the trans thing is definitely something that has a little bit more ground to cover. You can't just talk about it alongside it so easily. It's saying, oh, it's because it's an individualistic society and run rampant. And now it's R-rated horror films in the bedroom. Look at this. This is sad. Well, a lot of transsexuals eventually notice their sickness and act on it. There is a 50% suicide attempt rate among... That's not even the right word, transsexuals. They're just saying that because they like to say incorrect old-timey words. The cult of faggotry. And then they talk about child drag queen. They talk about Desmond is Amazing, which is a really old callback. I wonder when he put this book together. Like, Desmond's not even probably much of a kid anymore. He's probably a teenager by now. But even then, it's completely painted in this, like, oh, the sickos, blah. It's like, I don't know, is there space in society for a mom to take a kid to a gay bar and do what he likes to do? I don't know, a little weird. Who knows if that's what happened, but I don't imagine anything bad happened because it seems like it's pretty well documented, and if there was a crime, then, you know, boom, boom, they're gonna figure it out. Hold on, let me zoom that back in. I didn't even realize you guys would need to look at it. Pure individualism, that's how this happens, guys. That's what they said. And they say he's a victim, like, oh, we're not gonna pick on the fucking kid for being gay or whatever. They're just gonna say the woke mind virus took him over. That's probably what they would say if this book was a little bit more indated. War, the world's only hygiene. And it talks about pushing the youth to the limits of endurance, conquer the fear of death, be above pain, like all this fucking macho shit. And they quote like these stupid fucking things, like, and they think it's so badass when they do. Where was the other one at? They make fun of, like, this dude's like, hey, look, these are my grandfathers at my age. Like, yeah, okay, guess what? People ate less back then. They were far more active. They had to deal with more shit. They're gonna look a little bit more chiseled than a guy who kind of just gets to sit in his apartment and eat Hot Pockets with his fucking DCU t-shirt.
And who knows if that's even a fair representation. Like, you see what I mean? Like, it's complete and utter cruelty. Look at this. The degradation of our race. Is this slob really worth saving? That's unbelievable. It's just assholery for the sake of it. Men are taught to be weak and effeminate. Men are told their sole focus should be on materialist pursuits like profit and consumerist pleasure. Okay, whatever. It's a cruel joke, really. And this guy's... Like, people can get sort of egoically centered on fulfilling their next desire or getting Andrew Tated and thinking they need to just have muscles and money and everything will be cool. It's like, no, most people would definitely second. Like, you need to be inspired. You need to have a purpose in your life. And I don't think most people truly operate that way. There are people that kind of do, but even then, it's like, this is not what you do in the face of it. Because of pacifist weakness, the very land we conquered is at risk. So this is the whole, the mestizos in Mexico want to fucking take back a handful of states that used to belong to the Spanish territory of Mexico. And the La Raza and all that stuff. As George Lincoln Rockwell himself said, white man fight. Like, yeah, that's really going to get me pumped up while I'm reading this book. You guys are laughable. A new race for a new world. Negro blood thrown in from the slaves. Latinos. They make this point about like how Latinos not like a real original race and that it's sort of a racial mixture that sort of created its own ethnicity. Fair enough point, I guess, but they use that point to then say, well, us whites can kind of do it too, and you know, the Polish are just sort of German Slavs and they became their own thing, so we're going to take the waspiness of America and make that its own whiteness, and that's what we're going to base our North American fascist state on. Look at this. For our American futurist revolution to be successful, we need to burn and dispose of the ashes of the old... So here we go. Here's a problem. Old Jewish system, and replace it with our own. That's another problem. To disagree is to be counter-revolutionary and anti-fascist. Well, sure, fair enough. Why on earth would we want to preserve any part of this system? You know, this is where it's just like, poor, these guys are so... It's pathetic. It's like, oh, the poor little slug on the ground, because it just has... They just have no idea how much they're missing with such a narrow view. Like, there's so many things they're passing over, so many things that are being willfully asserted and just cobbled together. However, like, whether they're looking at the system or whether they're looking at their own views, there's no argument, there's no conversation, there's no back and forth. It's just, here's the rhetoric, this is what it is, and it acquires more labels to become less and less semantically disambiguated. Meaning that, like, when you say Great Satan or Zog or Jewish system, you're talking about all the same thing. And it's like, who's gonna get inspired by this? To quote Robert J. Matthews, so stand up like men and throw our enemies into the sea. Like, yeah, I want to go join the military, guys. 87 pages of this shit. This is talking about some boring ass military thing. First, the Jews, using nepotism and corruption, climbed to the top and shared power with the entrenched wasps. Again, that is very solvable, debatable little point there that would completely deconstruct their whole conspiracy on that. That's what it is. They take like 2 or 3 conspiracies that are the foundation of all of this, and this is what happens when it runs its course. You get shit like this. Political terror is the only thing they understand. You're no good to the revolution if you're dead and in jail. So they're saying, like, the way that Germany was taken down in World War II, electrical power grids, bridges, supply lines, leadership, blah, blah, blah. That's the way they need to target it. What the hell is this? I think they're talking about the IRA. Irish Republicans and their war for independence. I know, I get it. War, revolutions, they can be kind of nasty. Honestly, some of them are so conflictual. It's like, all right, who's going to win out? You know, I think it's maybe whoever stops doing the worst things first. Maybe the people who just kind of want to have a chance, because otherwise they would just be oppressed anyway. I don't know. This is the victim complex they're kind of trying to run with. This is the thing. Like, there's a... Maybe in the circumstances of history and the ugliness of human nature, there are places and times where political revolutions, armed revolutions, whatever, they just happen. But this is like trying to manufacture one where there doesn't need to be one. They need to convert everybody to their gospel so that they can attempt to mobilize them and, you know, this is how we win. Like, first, some of this has to even be true in the first place. Oh, you know, here's a little comparison. Yeah, so Democrat, you know, you're in the bathtub. Fascist, you know, it's a girl wearing a suit and tie, smoking weed with the boys. Nice little married military couple. Yeah, okay. A Hispanic black metal fan, guy in a hat. Couple gay guys having a good time there. Like, they think everybody wants to be in the fucking military and be like in this tip-top shape. And you know how fucking shitty and oppressive it would be to live in a country like that? That, you know, that genocides other people and forces you to go into the military and tries to really bind you down with ethnic ties that you really don't, most people really don't have too much of a regard for, because they're not needing to be so survival focused when it comes to like the family and, you know, provisional units of authority and things like that. Like, things can become pretty, you know, autocratic, autonomous. You know, like who wants? Here's a democrazia. Like, there's like, these are modern pictures. You don't need to use Italian words. Just fucking speak English. They're just trying to be cool. Look at that. They're making, like, come on. They're making fun of some scene girls who happen to be growing up in America where Twinkies are more accessible, and they're comparing it to, you know, fucking Catholic school. Little Hitler Youth female lineup there. And then, yeah, a little gay parade and then a family. Like, it's just, which do you prefer? I don't know, bro. It depends on you. All the great religions of the world that we do not fucking remotely understand. Christianity, Islam, Hinduism. They don't name Judaism. They're such little bitches. Do you know how much value is in? You know how much value is in, like, Kabbalah, Judaism, some of the commentary in the Talmud? You don't even need to go that far, and there's really cool stuff in there. What do I have? You know, here's a guy they wouldn't like, Khalil Gibran, the poet. Wonderful guy. Very much a leftist of his time. I suppose if he were very political, but he was just a poet. Even paganism. So these guys seem to favor Christianity, which James Mason and a lot of those guys do. They have their own interpretation of it. They have some respect for Islam because of the, you know, the totalitarianism of the fundamentalists. Hinduism, because again, that connects to this, which I don't know how many people have actually heard about this. It's a funny little term, but it's legitimate, and it connects itself to a lot of Hindu, pan-Hindu, Aryanist ideology to Hindu religious stuff. Excuse me. And it's ridiculous too, because there's so much value in, like, Vedanta and other Hindu things, to dive in them, like, spiritually. And I'm not talking about just being a little pretender, putting on the funny hat and going into the little thingy. You don't gotta pretend to be an Indian or nothing. It's just like unpack it, get into it a little bit, try to understand it, and there's value. But literally, because this is essentially like the first symbolic use of the swastika, they were like, hold on, let's take a look at that stuff. And they think there's something about this like Indo-Aryan, Indo-European Homo sapiens of the past. Like, you know, we're talking like first human makeup, you know, above the Middle East, Pan-Asian, European sort of, you know, coming out of the Caucasus Mountains kind of a thing. That's where they go with it. And so that's where they kind of try to mix a lot of like Aryan occultism and paganism with the Indian ideas like this. And it's like, dude, you can, if you're into religious studies, you can use all these different ideas and motifs and myths and things like that to construct things that are really cool. But you could do dumb shit like this too, where you think Hitler is kind of like an enlightened master, Hyperborean mythical rebirth. Like, this is what they're talking about. Like, this is what Wolfenstein's kind of getting into with the Nordic occultism. Miguel Serrano. I think I actually had one of this guy's books. Chilean diplomat, writer, occultist, and fascist activist, the Nazi sympathizer. This is why the Nazis this has to do with why they went to South America. Adolf Hitler, the last avatar. Imagine that fucking movie. Bruh. Serrano is one of a number of Nazi esotericists who regard the Aryan blood as originally extraterrestrial. Cro-Magnon man, bruh. Hold up. So Serrano finds mythological evidence. So this is what happens when you can't comprehend spiritual lessons and grow as a person, but instead you have to fucking ancient aliens your fucking dog shit ideology real quick. Hold on. So he says, Serrano finds mythological evidence for the extraterrestrial origins of man in the Nephilim of the Book of Genesis. This was probably before the discovery of the Nag Hammadi in the books of Enoch, or else they would have included that. Serrano suggests that the sudden appearance of Cro-Magnon man with his high artistic and cultural achievements in prehistoric Europe records the passage of one such Divya-descended race alongside the abysmal inferiority of the Neanderthal man, an abomination and manifest creation of the demiurge. So that's Gnosticism he's getting into right there. Of all the races of the earth, the Aryans alone preserve the memory of their divine ancestors in their noble blood, which is still mingled with the light of the black sun. All other races are the progeny of the demiurge's beastmen native to the planet. Oh my... Where the fuck did he get all this from? This is like combining a ton of ideas. Picking, definitely cherry picking, and then making up a fucking prehistoric picture. You know this reminds me of? This reminds me of fucking Saturnian death cult. Which the site sounds really bad, but it's not. It's not them. It's a catalog site for. Oh, come on. Is that not what it's called anymore? Okay, hold on. Let's just basic Google it. Yeah, Troy McLaughlin, bruh. He's got a website. Where the fuck is it? There it is. SaturnDeathCult.com. So this is like Purple Earth, Electric Universe. Like, this is the kind of shit they're digging up when they're talking about this crap. That's the cat. Won't leave mommy's food alone. Look at this fucking shit. Okay. I used to go to this site all the time because back in the day, I used to kind of be into the whole conspiracy thing, and I think David Icke talked about this, so I went and checked it out. The link between planetary catastrophes, ancient mythology. Like, this is the kind of shit you would see in the wacky tobacco fucking book department of Barnes & Noble. Not even. The Saturn Death Cult is an investigation into ancient planetary upheavals that heralded the birth and destruction of a fabled golden age, following which mankind then degenerated into the obsessive pursuit of wealth and power through the perverted horrors of slavery, child sacrifice, and mass murder rituals. And of course, this is all attributed to what? the oh-so-secretive cabal of the continued religious heritage of, I don't know, Jews, lizards, fucking something. And some of these guys aren't like that, right? They won't say it's Jews. They'll say, well, it's some Jews, but it's whoever. I used to be fascinated by electrical universe theory. Right here, electric universe. This is kind of a combination. So it says the theory, we're off on a big ass rabbit trail. So if you look at the picture here, they're saying, so basically Saturn isn't a planet. It was our home brown dwarf star. And Mars was in between Earth and this star, Saturn. And it created this iris, which is where a lot of like religious symbolism comes from, is, oh, they would look up in the purple dawn in the twilight and it would be like an eye looking down on them. That's literally what the fuck. And they say stuff was big because it was dark. See how the alchemical movies of Stanley Kubrick point to a hidden modern Saturnian elite with a very dark agenda for mankind's useless eaters, and how CIA mind control programs like MK Ultra have played a significant role in the rise of the serial killer phenomenon. Fascinating. This site's a little bit different from what it used to be. Well, actually, it's because you're supposed to read it like this. Yeah. They got like whole little, it's like a little book website. So this is where you would start. Here's all the science, guys. The Ganymede hypothesis. So when we're talking about this, that's where it's going. That's where you're venturing into if you dive deep enough in. Like this fucking shit, Hyperborea, this whack job shit that has no bearing on the efficacy of your own life. Purple zone. It was a purple haze. Jimi Hendrix wrote about it. Dinosaur. Big planet. Alright. We're going to cover the path forward, and that's going to be it. I know. Extraterrestrial? What? I told you. It took 2 hours, but we finally... It got fun after it got serious. These people were raised to believe the ideological nuclear family and that all anyone should want out of life is to find someone to have kids with, raise them, and grow old and die. Yes, there's no... That's a really good point, because it's like... That's good and all. It's like you... I know you can't do it all, but it's kind of nice maybe to do that and maybe be a little wild on the side. That's what everybody else did. Look at fucking... I was going to say Aleister Crowley, but that's not a good example. Look at fucking... Like, look at any, like, spiritual guru or any kind of, like, influential person. Look at Martin Luther King. No, I don't know. I don't know about the adultery accusations. I don't know if they're true or not. I never looked into it. But think of something like that. You've got someone of great influence, great ethics, great power. And then they're like, well, they wanted to touch their secretary because she had a nice butt. And you're like... That's not very fascismo. But hey, man, you gotta fucking explore sometimes. Or you just forget who you are. Can you imagine living a fucking cookie cutter ass rubric, white picket fence, 2.5 kids and a dog, working until you're fucking dead? That sucks. On its own. I know that everyone in the far-right brainwashed groups are just people who were told that they should hate these people and therefore hate themselves. The self-loathing is high. Yeah, why do you think I ended up doing what I did and got arrested? It was literally, I got to the point of self-loathing, or at least there was just nothing more I could do to support myself. Surrounded by people who think you shouldn't exist. At least that was my... Yeah, actually. So as much as you make other people the enemy... it reflects back on you, basically, is what you mean, you know? That is very true. That's a good way to put it. Because we hate ourselves, we become the loudest against it, and because we are trying to convince ourselves that it's true. Yeah. It's almost kind of the way I did it. It was a last-ditch effort. I went ahead and contacted Adam Waffen. I fucking was in the stream of it for like 2 months. Not even. I was the last rung on the ladder, right before the, you know, like when you're trying to rush into the grocery stores, the automatic sliding doors are closing. Like, I jumped in right there. And I got taken down with them. The FBI knew about it like 2 years ahead of time. I had no fucking idea. And I did it because it was like, I had the Telegram groups. Nobody was really live streaming anymore. Like, it was like I was becoming bored with it. But I was like, but I believe it. What am I supposed to do now? Like, my life wasn't going anywhere. I didn't really care to go to college for anything. I was like kind of going to try to go to welding school because, oh, that was very big, tough white man and smart to do. It's just, it's ridiculous now when I'm thinking about it. Let's see what this book's trying to say. Oh, the environment. Oh boy. So they're saying, okay, capitalists are bad because of environment, purity, and health for our race. Yeah, this is the blood and soil. So it's not really about the environment. It's that they kind of have to virtue signal the environment in order to kind of be not reprimand. To mix it to properly like aid with their racial ideology. The environmentalism business is booming. This kind of gets into the right wing mindset, or the conspiracies about, the Green New Deal and it's gonna fuck us over. We can't do green energy. It's that. Eco products do more damage. I mean, there's something to that, right? Like the whole Tesla thing. Obviously, Elon Musk fucking sucks, kind of, and like the creation and the disposal of a Tesla battery does worse for the environment than if you were, driving a gasoline vehicle for whatever, shit like that. Like, we want like a real good alternative kind of a thing, not something that has some kind of like string attached or, detrimental effect. Recycling movement's a giant scam. They can say whatever they want about the environment. That's actually something I've never really dived into that much, was climate change and environmentalism. But obviously they have this right-wingedness because they're mocking people who want to save the planet and, in the next decade the temperatures are rising and all of this. And it's like, it's pretty true though. We live in Arizona here. It's fucking hot, man. It's always been hot, but it's been real fucking hot lately. So they're just saying, well, you guys aren't true environmentalists, or, no true leftists fallacy, because you don't want to be, a Nazi and throw all these guys into the fucking ocean. The LGBT problem. The U.S. spends billions to promote this movement in Africa and the Middle East. LGBT propaganda is so heavily promoted in Africa that there are militias of Africans dedicated to fighting against it. Boko Haram in the West is evil. Well, that has more to do with Islamic fundamentalism. He remembers looking at WikiLeaks. All of this was because a gay mulatto Cuban complained about how badly he was treated by the Estonian locals. Isn't Estonia a place where, like, Nazis were literally walking the streets, like, commonly, and, like, with guns, and they just would, like, kill people? I don't know if that's Estonia or maybe that was not the Serbian. One of those weird little Eastern European genocides that happened a handful of years back. That's the sort of news I was never privy to. I'm only so old. The embassy staff felt that Estonia needed to change to suit American perversions. I mean, interests. Just kind of being a dick there. This is like the same stuff when they're like, oh, the decline of Europe because of all the refugees. It's the same thing. And They say, oh, this was under the Bush administration. Same bullshit happened under Trump, so they're not exactly Trump supporters completely. They got their own purity. Obviously, Pfizer, biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world, disease, homosexuals, and mutilated transvestites, require a mountain of expensive medications to live. Pfizer sells these expensive medications, such as HIV meds, that are essential to many homosexuals. The way they just fucking shit this stuff out of their mouths. They sell TVite, estrogen pills, antidepressants, and the like. Pfizer is unsurprisingly a corporate sponsor for LGBT groups like human rights. So they just see all of this as antagonistic, just evil, underhanded, nasty. Like shit can happen even in the midst of some progressive change in the world. You know, like when we upgraded from the horse to the motor vehicle, you know, there were people trying to pull some bullshit and some scams and pretend like they knew shit, and you know what I'm saying? It's like that. This doesn't lend any kind of illegitimacy to the reality that human beings are bimodal and variant, and what the fuck's the problem with just trying to settle in and accept it? Maybe the 20th century really needed to be a really muddled battleground for these kind of ideas, as it was for many other ideas, because of how hyper-industrialized and communication was, and how everything just kind of changed so quickly. I mean, that's kind of a thing. That's my point. They talk about Jazz Jennings. Like, they're just kind of talking about all these little bits. This transgender child stuff is the same exact shit the Ottomans did to the children of their conquered. It makes sense since the Turks and our Ashkenazi overlords are related genetically. So there's a little bit of Middle East Islamic hate there. I don't know what they mean by the Turks and Ashkenazi being related genetically. I think that's related to the, what the fuck is that theory called? It was so popular with these guys. It basically, like, the Ashkenazi sort of modern Jews are different from like real Jews or something like that. Like there's fake Jews and real Jews. Like the fake Ashkenazi Jews, and I suppose the Turks kind of come off looking a little bit more European than they do Middle Eastern, and so they trick all the white people. And then real ratty, dirty Jews are the ones that appear more gruddy and Middle Eastern in their opinion. This is also why things like mass movementism is stupid. You can't beg your way to power in an occupation. You can only kill your occupiers and take back power. Totally not an illegal statement or anything. No, I understand. Okay, I live under an oppressive regime. It's illegal to say blah, blah, blah. It's like there's still things that are technically bad for you to do, regardless of the situation you're in. You have to like figure out what the right decision is. You can't just LARP as Che Guevara. Art, our greatest strength. Kind of bad though, you know. I like when things get a little whipsy-gipsy, but all this art kind of does look the same. Again, it's taking these old world views and it's just doing some Pablo Picasso shit with them. Art is degenerate. Yeah, here's the art is degenerate boomer speech. Look at this. This is definitely modern. There's some shit up here. Looks like almost like coordinates or something. Be radical. Stomp the parentheses system. Here's the National Socialist Movement little what the fuck? I forgot what this symbol's called. Obviously Nordic. Oftentimes used Nazi symbol. Oh boy, this is where they talk shit about all the movementarians and all the, like, listen to this. This is actually probably something pretty good. To quote George Lincoln Rockwell, this describes every flavor of the month e-celeb that pops up only to fade away into obscurity. People such as Mike Enoch, David Duke, Nick Fuentes, and any others that pop up from the crop. They all have a Teflon coating in their eyes of their followers. They can do no wrong. Sure, they may be hypocrites or con men, but according to their followers, it's all a conspiracy. The behavior of their virtual father figures is always excusable, whether it's homosexual allegations, race mixing, or just general phony Führer behavior. It doesn't matter, it's excusable for some dumb shit reason that only makes sense to the person making excuses. Even if there are mountains of evidence proving these claims, they don't care. It's a cult. It's funny you say that. The leadership can do no wrong, and when they do, their brain-dead followers lie, deflect, lie, and then make excuses. So they think they're talking about this in a favorable position because they view their American futurism. They don't understand how the entire ideological possession is essentially a cult. They're just saying, oh, well, we're decentralized. We're not saying worship this guy or look at this guy and, oh, look at him go. He's going to change things. They don't do that. Still doesn't defeat the fact that you believe in dog shit. Internet personality Nick Fuentes is the perfect example. Got caught hanging out with a male prostitute who flew in to meet him in Chicago. Well, we kind of already know Nick's gay. Nick and this homosexual hooker go on a homosexual date for 10 interrupted hours. I think I think I know what they're talking about. The entire time the homosexual is wearing cat ears and, the shebang. This degenerate male hooker has been recorded drinking fake semen out of a rubber, gargling it in drag. Yet Nick's supporters go one of two routes. They deny and claim it's a conspiracy against their daddy figure, or they excuse his actions by saying it's just a joke. Or the Mr. Medicare type who just makes fun of him because he probably is definitely a little bit gay. This is the so-called right-winger in denial rather than press for. So they talk shit about a lot of the more surface level alt-right, right-wing, far-right, the stuff you see. So that's what I'm saying. These guys are the guys who are kind of behind the curtain of the whole thing. This is the ideological foundation and motivation for what actual real guys who believe in this stuff really get down to. It's still stupid. It's still dumb. It's still really dumb. It's just, what I mean to say is it's very poor quality. It's not even that good. They're just disavow, semantically disambiguate, back up, here we go. Basically make themselves of no blame, and all we do is just push the ideology and this stuff, guys. Get away from this and get away from that because it's tainted. Well, how many more things are going to get tainted? How long is it going to take for futurism to basically be tainted? Surprise, it already is. It never worked that way for Hitler or Christ. Yeah, okay, are you gonna want to do hard, relentless, and unflinching work for these guys? We love animals. What the fuck? Animals saluting a fascist, their only human comrades. Yeah, it's easy. They'll just connect. Oh, look at the slaughterhouses and the fucking consumer mass farms, and fascists wouldn't do that, guys. The once pure waters. They connect the whole healthy, pure world with a healthy and pure race. We know that. The so-called alt-right movement was and is a sham. Why? The whole time they sought reform through a mass movement. We, as American futurists, seek radical revolution and the death of those responsible for the system's evils. The world isn't dying, it's being killed, and those killing it have names and addresses. That's actually, I think, a quote from Adam Waffen. Atwar. Sins of the Founding Fathers talking shit about America. They don't want to do the Patriot Front thing where it's America with fascism. They don't want to do that. Oliver Cromwell and his period. See, they want to go back to fucking Conan the Barbarian times. They just want to cut the heads off of some officials and say, all right, we're the guys in charge now. And then what the fuck do you think's going to happen next, right? The same kind of thing. You want to fuck around with everybody else? Watch what happens. Oh, look, George Washington's hanging out with fucking financiers. Ooh. However much interesting stuff might be kind of under the history books of this, true or not, they're trying to connect it to this, again, a Jewish conspiracy thing. We do not argue. Okay, this is important. They do believe in this. We do not argue with those who disagree with us. We destroy them. Bruh. This is their little LARPy scenario of like, okay, we're gonna have a governor general, a mayor, and he's gonna, you know, in my time in the military, in the postal service, and, you know, the energy nuclear power plant. So what we're gonna have is a mayor. Doing my best, Jesse Ventura. We're gonna have a governor general. He had to have been an all-time heavyweight wrestler first. And he needs a 3-4 majority to elect. He has to resign. Like, they're just making up this whole fucking LARP. Just fake at, like, yeah, okay, you go ahead and try to implement that policy. Good luck. It's just fantasy. The youth who should have led and would have won. Exporting revolution. So they're saying we're going to go beyond America. Yeah, these are the good guys here. You know, their grandfathers dropped the ball. They got to fix it. And then this is basically the end of the book, talking about anti-capitalism, anti-leftism. Look at this, just dehumanization, scum. Like, these were young kids who happened to be on, it looks like the side of the Italian communists. Or at least the opposing side to the fascists. It's just ugly, ugly, tribal, prison politic bullshit. I got a marching song in here. Oh my God. You seeing this shit? AI generated. Most of what they said is projecting what they themselves are doing, but they're trying to pull wool over your eyes by claiming the other side is doing all that. I mean, no, I was there. I mean, they really believe that this is the case. Like, this is just how the world works, and they don't see it any other way. And you see it here in the path forward. So this is 2023, October 2023, recent enough. Dissident rights in an interesting situation. It's very clear that there are more people convinced of our views or getting closer to them by the day. Take note of that. Yet many people are rightfully aware of the fact that there is little follow through. Listen to this vampire shit. Due to the lack of vessels to exert our willpower on the political system. I have been in the movement for a decade and have had the wonderful opportunity to interact with many sides of the movement. The ultimate goal, which cannot be forgotten, is victory. It does not matter how cool we look or how right we are if we cannot apply our views to the real world. So this kind of article is basically what guys back a couple years ago would have died for, would have been looking for. They really wanted someone to sweep away all of the, you know, the stuff that seemed unnecessary, and they just wanted to know what the plan of action was. And this is basically what this is. Anything that is not focused against the state is a waste of time. This is where they denounce mass movement style rallies, propaganda, street fights, anything really that involves you going outside. They either believe you just stay on the internet and talk your shit. Maybe somebody feels like sacrificing themselves. Go ahead and go out there and kill some people and try to ignite. Literally just do what Manson did. Attempt to murder or whatever and try to start a violent civil war or a collapse of the country. We will not win the civil war currently. We do not have the numbers to cause a collapse directly. And then they talk about social atomization. Your average American at this point has a small family, few friends, and very little, if any, interaction with their neighbors. Old-style strikes, mass movements, and other tactics aren't viable when people don't have attachment to their community. Simple fascist rhetoric will fall upon deaf ears. No, it's because this fucking rhetoric is trash. If people cannot even comprehend what an ethnic group is or why they would want to act out of their own self. Yeah, it's all... They talk about individualism and selfishness, and they're talking about self-interest. Obviously, they're talking about the collective self and not you yourself. Just a fucking bait and switch. Oh, well, to save yourself, bro, and have a blonde wife with kids, you need to come join us. The safety net portion is important, as before you had a certain level of protection or independence from the state due to your local community being more impactful on you directly. So for these guys, those are smart words. Like, they're basically bringing the picture down. Like, take local office, organize, prepare, organize, prepare, organize, prepare. And then when we believe that we have enough numbers, they're going to just kind of wait for, they just think America's going to kind of, and if it doesn't, that's when they might start doing some crazy shit. The internet is a superior method of disseminating ideas. They praise the tactful campaigns of It's Okay to Be White and culture jamming, which is, I think, what I participated in. It makes extensive use of posters. These options seek to wreak havoc rather than being an actual end goal. Stirring the pot, basically. It talks about don't be an edgelord incel. They can't help it, though. A plan for victory. They like the whole siege thing, but they say siege groups that try to do shit are useless. They just need to organize, prepare, organize, prepare. Look at this. These are their goals. To get the general this is important. This is the most important part of this stream. Look at this. These are their goals. To get the general population demoralized with the state, its institutions, and the trajectory of the country overall. We want people to know the government hates them and view the political apparatus as controlled or an ineffective means to advance their desires, which ought to be overthrown or destroyed. They need to be completely separate from nation and from state. American people need to develop a racial consciousness and understand the reality of race relations and how they fit. Sorry, bucko, that's becoming kind of less and less relevant by the day. Americans have been entirely brainwashed into having no identity, or at best, a very vague and materialist one. Dude, you want to talk about materialist? Jesus Christ. This is materialism 202, fucking being a fascist. All you give a shit about is the material. Your average person in the country does not fully understand what constitutes a nation or people. And so you basically race and IQ pill them, is what they're saying. We need to understand that we built this nation, that we have a common culture beyond guns and burgers, and that it's acceptable for us to have an in-group preference that is carried out via political means. Yeah, okay, that's step one. People think that's at least somewhat civil, is to believe in that, but this is what they're saying, is this simple belief of a separate in-group preference, being interested in, like, your lineage and, I'm different from a black guy. This is what they want to use as to we need people to become fascists or something close to it. This is a gradual process, but our views need to become understood beyond a vague World War II boogeyman to a comprehensive ideology that they support. We need a solid base of people that are physically skilled, mentally and economically stable, intelligent, and willing to locally coordinate to actually be an effective and self-sufficient community. This is why I commented on small-town conservatives earlier, as they actually have a community of normal people that can provide skills and have a high level of cohesion. This will let us survive dangerous conditions. It's like a whole fucking manifesto. Like, they think this shit is for real. I believed it too. Like, honestly, I could have been the guy that wrote this, because where I was headed, this is the sort of thing that I would have tried to think up. Talks about recruitment, organization. They say no branding, little to no branding. Like, don't get yourself a big funny flag. Don't get a symbol. Don't march in the streets. Propaganda arm. Demoralize your average normie into being totally disenfranchised from the state. Okay. Getting people aware of the realities of race relations, the Jews, and historical cultural identity. It's going to be kind of hard to convince people of a falsehood. Promoting existing right-wingers to have a real understanding of what the Third Reich was and why fascism solves all of our problems. And 4, encouraging people to be functional human beings that have a good job and are in shape. Yeah, they don't like if you drive for Lyft and are fat. You gotta go fucking bust your butt at the fucking steel mill and also go to the gym. All for these guys. I really, they think they're that fucking special. And they actually praise keyboard warriors because they think that their internet dissemination's actually done something. And they might have a point. I mean, look at how much fucking poll, 4chan, Reddit type shit, how fast all of that. I mean, fuck, look at Twitter now. They face unprecedented challenges in our movement. Yeah, this is just them trying to be smart. Insane, isn't it? Let's close these other tabs. So yeah, that's basically the crux of it. So last article they put out was July 15th, somewhat recent, basically 2 weeks ago. Before that, it was May 10th. So it looks like somebody gets around to writing something at least once a month. And it's not even the same person. Here's Anonymous, Ryan Arthur, Texas Pete. Oh man, he wrote this some. Ugh. Like I could do something with each of these articles, but maybe I'll save that for individual videos. This one talks about some kind of rally in Philadelphia. It looks like Patriot Front. I did not hear about that. Yeah. So not incredibly active, but basically active as far as anything else I've seen. The commenter did mention, the one from my other live stream, that James Mason is supposed to have this website that's apparently run by this pedophile guy, or at least it was. The website was kind of doctored by him. I still don't know what that website is yet. I don't know if it's supposed to be just a reproduction of like siege culture, which I thought that this website actually had, because I thought it had it had an Atomwaffen archive last I looked, and now it's not there. That was kind of one of the main things I was gonna take a look at. I'll be ending soon. I mean, I think this is as close as I'm gonna get. Oh boy, actual audio. This is held up on archive.org. And that's where a lot of this guy's stuff is. Look at this. James Mason book, Iron March book. I actually knew Augustus Invictus a little bit. I used to talk with Austin Gillespie. He does other stuff these days. I think it's less radical. We'll maybe cover that sometime. War Radio, Tom Metzger shit. The Charles Manson, James Mason siege culture book stuff that's probably the wildest shit we'll see. I'll try to bring some of that up. But that was the expose on American Futurist. I'll have to definitely comb through this stream later to trim some of the bits out. There's no formatting or categorizing for the archives. Yeah, exactly. Not even just simple Google. Okay, so the thing is, you got to take it at their mindset. Like, they won't believe you if you just Google search. You have to like give them, like, you gotta really dive into the academics. But even then, they won't believe you. Oh, the academics are sold out to the liberal mind virus and, you know, Jews and stuff. Like, they just can't, like, they will not believe anything other than what they want to when it's convenient. Yeah. Hold on. To me, this just reads, help, we are a dying point of view. Please, low IQ people, join us in our nonsense to validate my overall problematic view of race, sex, and religion. Easily. Yeah, like I said, I could probably make little tidbit, like 5-10 minute videos just kind of going through whatever articles might be juicy enough to take a look at. They gotta keep their nonsense. Some of they're not allowed to peddle this stuff in the general public, so they make their own websites. Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, I've seen this kind of website dozens of times. Like, I kind of want to keep this website bookmarked because I think this is about the only place I'm going to find stuff like this. This is where we're going to cover the real, because this is the real, actual, radical stuff we need to cover. Like, we're not going to just let these kind of people just go out and Nick Fuentes or whoever, even though they denounce him, like, these guys do align. They basically support the same thing. You don't, Nick's not going to go out there and disavow something. He's just going to use it to propel more and more of his shit. Doesn't matter if somebody dies. There's no disavowing. There's no nothing like that going on. This is as dirty and nasty as it gets. This is probably something definitely worth covering now. And I'll try to find other old podcasts that I think might still exist, like Bull Patrol. Those were people that I had knew in convention with. And then, yeah, I think that next time I really want to cover the Jared Howe and Cantwell drama arc. Yeah, see. Okay, yeah. So he still hasn't posted from September 2023. So this basically kind of was a jump off from, like, Cantwell and a lot of other guys are like pro-Russia. And Jared kind of comes from the anarcho-capitalist background, but he's basically a fascist now. But he still sort of is held up in that mindset of, you know, Russia's this and that, and I don't want to have to deal with it, so leave Ukraine alone. This would be so fun to get into. Not right now. I'm done, but oh boy. The whole Telegram conversation is... Oh, whoops. Oh, yeah. Oh, man. I don't even know. You can't really troll these groups. They're super tight on their whole member security. I don't even know if these guys still talk to each other. Maybe. I used to be in this Telegram stuff, though. But that's going to be something worth covering there. So let's actually save that. I meant to open that in a new tab. Let's save that, and then I'll look for some of this other stuff. I'll cover that some other time. I do want to kind of diversify the subjects I cover and not just be stuck on this, because it's all sort of the same shit. I'm just looking for the interesting stuff, like this one maybe. I don't know. I'll take a look at it, but I'm not sure I'll need to cover it. I'm looking for, like, maybe this kind of thing? Let's see. No, that's too biographical. I don't need to do that. Where is the real crazy shit? Yeah. I don't know if I have to download it to actually view it, so. I have an audio book. I wonder if that's just AI. Yeah, no, that's where we get into the illegal shit. I don't want to go there. But yeah, all right, that will do it for this time. I'll have to comb through this later, but yeah, that'll do it. Thanks for watching the stream. Let me just check the chat one more time and then we'll bounce. Thanks a lot for watching, Wolfie. They even self-identify as radicals regarding their point of view. They know what they believe is ridiculous, but they're so brainwashed they can't escape. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, thanks a lot. I really did miss the two other guys that are pretty frequent with my streams. Maybe today wasn't a good day to do it. Who knows? Maybe I got to try to stick to like Fridays or weekends or something. I have no idea. Most people don't even work like a 5 days a week thing anymore. Like it's kind of all over the place with employment nowadays. So I don't understand why the weekend would be more available than other days. But anyway. Yeah, all right, good stream. I will cut it right about there. Okay, all right. Yeah. Thanks for hanging out. See you next time.